Hey everybody, got a couple of quick tips here for you on shopping for a computer. I do have people from time to time come in and ask me, hey, I need to buy a computer. What do you recommend? Now, the less you know about computers, the easier it is to answer that question. The more you know about computers, the more difficult it is because there's so many different options, operating systems, etc. So sometimes I get all so complicated trying to answer that question for a customer that I think they leave more confused than when they walk in. So I'm going to try to make this a kind of like a 1, 2, 3 simple tips for going shopping. If you want to get a laptop, let's use a laptop in this scenario, and we're going to get a typical person that is going to be just going online and doing basic stuff. So if you need a specialty operating system or something of that sort, this would not apply to you. So to keep it simple, the first thing I would be looking for is the processor, the CPU, and there I would go with an Intel. I'm not knocking AMD, but I would go with an Intel. And I would stay with the Core series, being an i3, which is the entry level in the Core series. There's an i5, and then there's an i7. Now there's no i4 and i6, so that's just basically the way they set that up. So an i3 would be my entry point, Intel i3. Now typically, just with that alone, you could almost do a little bit of shopping because there's not going to be a computer with an i3 processor with 2 gigs of RAM and a terrible hard drive and just a piece of junk. Pretty much that's not going to happen. So your typical i3 is going to have 4 gigs of RAM. So that's the entry point as far as RAM, random access memory, not the hard drive. Nowadays 4 gigs is kind of the bare minimum, and that's what you're going to see. If you can get 6 or 8, all the better. Okay, and then last but not least, the other thing you're going to look at is the hard drive. Frankly, in this scenario here, you're probably going to see more than anything 500 gigs and a terabyte. Most people nowadays are not storing a lot of stuff on their computers anymore with so much cloud and so much online content that we're just consuming content versus storing content. So that's going to be the last case scenario. Somebody might sell you on a terabyte drive. More than likely, you're not going to fill up a terabyte. You're not even going to fill up a 500 gigabyte drive. So I would not really worry about that too much. So again, I said this was going to be a quick like 1, 2, 3 on how to shop for a computer. Of course, the first thing actually before all this is you need to set yourself up a budget of how much you want to invest, whether it be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because that's going to guide you as to whether you're going to go i5, i3, i5, or i7. So once again, go with an Intel, go with the Core series, which would be i3, i5, i7, depending on the price or your budget. And then from there, make sure you get 4 gigs of RAM. If you can get 6 or 8 and your budget allows, even better. Don't really worry about so much on the hard drive. Now, let me throw one other thing in here on the hard drive. If you have a budget probably over 500, 600 in that range, you may find laptops that have what's called an SSD drive. An SSD drive is like a flash drive, like a thumb drive. Basically, there's no spinning disk. Way faster, tremendous performance gains with those type of drives. Now, they're like at least twice as much. You might find a computer with an SSD, but you might see 250 gigabytes or 120 and those kind of things. So if you see an expensive computer with a small hard drive, that pretty much is going to tell you that that's an SSD drive. So if you don't need a lot of storage and you got a budget, probably going to be over $500 to find a computer that's going to have this type of drive. Definitely it is worth the investment. So that's my 1, 2, 3, probably a little bit longer than I expected, but I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.